What happens when two apex carnivores fight one another? Well, nature has a way of sorting these things out. Lions hunt zebras, polar bears hunt seals, and so on. But every now and then, we humans like to ask real questions, right? When it comes to the scariest animals on Earth, two names usually float to the top: crocodiles and sharks. Both of these animals' ancestors managed to survive past the dinosaurs just to be thrown into a who would win video today. On one side, you got a 15-foot anxiety attack with armor plating, attitude, and jaws strong enough to end family trees. And on the other, the great white shark, a muscle-bound sea missile that turns any of its victims into a seafood smoothie. Both make their environments into horror movies, no doubt. But what if they were to meet halfway and ruin each other's day? Who would win in a fight between a saltwater crocodile and a great white shark? Well, I'm gonna give y'all the honest truth here and provide you with an actual answer. So none of this 50-50 nonsense, okay? And the winner, by the way, may shock some of y'all. So first, let's establish some ground rules. Where is this fight even taking place? Yeah, so ain't no shark gonna be fighting on land, and a croc's not doing so great 100 miles offshore. So to make this fair, we're putting these two angry adults in an open bay, about 30 feet deep, let's just say, okay? This gives the shark plenty of room to maneuver around and for the croc to not be completely out of its element. And by the way, we are assuming both are angry at one another and want to duke it out. So no saying one would just swim away, okay? Now let's find out who wins this fight. Size and physique. Okay, so swimming up against the shark is the living dinosaur, the saltwater croc, aka the ancient murder canoe. And you know what? The crocodilian lineage literally survives since the actual dinosaurs. So they're clearly doing something right. You know, maybe it's the fact that they got a serious villain arc going on. Basically, salties turn waterways of Australia and Southeast Asia into horror films. Yeah, these things are so powerful that they've been known to drag full-grown water buffaloes through thick mud, bite through boats. And there was even one instance where a croc already tied up was strong enough to overpower multiple men just to obliterate the wagon it was on. But okay, we get it. This thing has the ruthlessness to make Frieza proud. But just how large is a saltwater crocodile? Well, typical adult males grow between 13 to 15 feet in length and weigh between 900 to 1100 pounds. Okay? And yes, people, I'm well aware of those rare 20-foot legends, but those are the exceptions and not the average. And if we start pulling out exceptions from the shark, the great white would simply humiliate the croc. But anyways, what perhaps makes crocs so infamous is their sheer durability. Basically, crocs have very thick scales that are actually really hard to puncture. And this is thanks to them being nice and ossified, aka embedded with bony plates. So it makes them very resistant to sharp objects. And on top of that, they take the stoic philosophy way too seriously. Crocs have something called a muted pain response. And this is due to their less sensitive nerve endings around their limbs. Straight up, there's a literal video of one of them getting its arm ripped off and not really caring. I mean, try that out with a lion or zebra and see how the mood changes. But one quick thing we gotta ask is, how these crocs are built for water combat, since, I mean, that's where this fight scenario would take place with the shark. Ain't no self-respecting shark gonna step up on land. Anyways, the salty's whole body is pretty flat, wide, and has a thrashing, powerful tail that's basically used as a motor. So their whole body is actually designed to hug the surface of the water and is built for explosive bursts. And hugging the water may actually have some pros, such as producing concussive forces when thrashing, which is actually used to disorient creatures that rely on stable waters, like for instance, its opponent, the shark. Oh, and speaking of its opponent, let's move on to the great white shark, aka nature's Super Saiyan torpedo with teeth. Yeah, this thing is the reason why seals don't sleep at night and has that type of main villain Thanos aura. And they have pretty much that conquering the world type of territory. They live anywhere where temperate waters touch land. But what makes them a living nightmare is perhaps just how powerful they are. These sharks are so strong that they've been known to snap through metal cages, toss seals up in the air like popcorn to eat them, and there was even one instance of a great white straight up tugging a rescue boat. But when it comes to size, this is where the gap really shows. So surprisingly, female great whites tend to be the heavyweights of the species, often outsizing males when fully grown. In fact, mature females typically average between 15 to 16 feet in length and weigh in between 1500 to 2,400 pounds. Yeah, this thing is a literal ton of problems. And you know what? The shark is nearly double the size of the average saltwater croc. So I guess there really is no contest when it comes to raw mass. But size doesn't determine everything, people. It's actually how these creatures are built that would perhaps be more determinant of underwater combat. So without getting too deep into anatomy and to just simply speed up this comparison, I'm gonna give y'all a quick summary real quick. So first, the shark. We all know it's specifically designed for an aquatic lifestyle, in particular a little bit more of open waters. And despite their size, they actually may be more agile and faster. Essentially, they have a more streamlined body with their fins helping them move all over the place and just simply help them steer in the water. And that large tail fin grants them short, high energy bursts like a turbo. But besides that, the shark's rounded body, you know, being shaped like a torpedo and everything, would be very hard for the croc to get a good bite in due to its flat board-like mouth. So I think it's pretty obvious here that the shark pretty much has the whole size slash physique here locked in for water combat. But listen carefully, there are some major flaws for the shark. Specifically, the fins of the shark are exposed, and that could be an easy target to hit. And if one of them is severely damaged, it would be pretty much almost game over for the shark. Basically, blow out a fin, and you've turned Jaws into a sad inflatable pool toy. That said though, landing that hit would be insanely tough because sharks have something called counter shading, aka great camouflage in the ocean. This means their dark top blends in with the ocean depths and their pale underside melts into the sun when looking up. So perhaps in direct open water combat, the croc would pretty much have a hard time spotting it. But would the croc even need to worry about that? After all, this fight would basically take place in close range, and the croc's high explosive power and thrashing factors could actually disorient the shark. So could that potentially take away from the shark's advantages? Furthermore, what are the weapons looking like, and how would a fight even play out? Well, the answers to those may actually shock you and turn the tides. So let's move on to our last aspect here, which is weaponry and fighting IQ. Alright, so let's talk about the Salties arsenal. Why call it a prehistoric murder canoe? Well, they're built like a floating suitcase with anger issues. The saltwater croc's entire reputation rests on one move: its monstrous bite. We're talking about a haunting 3,700 psi of raw bad intentions. Yeah, that's one of the strongest bites out there right now. And once it latches on, it loves to perform its signature move, the death roll, which is when it twists a limb violently to snap a bone or tear it clean off. So yeah, brutal, absolutely. But here's the thing, people just seem to overhype the croc's bite as if it's just some insta one crush thing, but that's actually not true. A croc's bite is actually meant for holding slash latching, so it can track stuff underwater, right? This is proven by their very flat, board-like jaws and conical cone-shaped teeth being used for gripping and not something like slicing per se. That's why there are so many instances of animals, like zebras or buffalo, straight up dragging crocs out of water while getting bit, and not just instantly dying. If that insta-crush thing were the case, by the way, that would be a patch in nature that needs to be fixed. But don't get it twisted. If the croc latches onto a shark's fin, yeah, that would be very troublesome for the fish, let me tell you. And the croc surprisingly has a sneaky advantage here. They would likely be able to perform more precise movements and bites due to its simply smaller frame and I guess a little more freely moving and thrashing body compared to the shark. And do you recall when I said the thrashing would disorient the shark? I wasn't kidding. A lot of times, sharks rely on detecting electrical impulses from living animals to locate them. So the concussive force of the water around the thrashing motion of the croc could very well confuse the shark. But here's a very big problem: the salty stamina. Yeah, so crocs are cold-blooded and build up lactic acid very easily, meaning their muscles fatigue fast. And remember this, they will eventually have to go up to the surface to breathe. So that could very well leave it vulnerable when doing so, especially noting that crocs have a very soft underbelly. So while they're built for short, violent outbursts, long, drawn-out fights aren't really their thing. But how about the shark here? Well, if the croc is a prehistoric murder canoe, the shark is a nature-guided missile with a personality disorder. It too carries with it a deadly bite, but it's aimed for a different purpose. Its mouth is a war crime, with their teeth being razor sharp and their bite aimed to turn anything into a seafood smoothie. So while the croc is Mr. Latch and Roll, people, the shark is about slicing and making things bleed out. And if the great white can carve through whale hide, you bet it could rip chunks from the croc. But strat-wise, basically bite, circle back, wait, then bite again, essentially playing the long game. And by the way, the shark has a unique trick up its fin, which is that the shark often likes to come up from below, rocketing up to full speed to bite and ram the underbelly of animals like seals or dolphins. Yeah, you're not really gonna see a croc doing that because it likes to hug the surface, and it's simply just not in its skill set. So don't you see how that could be a problem for the croc when it, let's just say, gets tired and needs to go up for air? But still though, it ain't all upsides for the shark, let me tell you. Any damage to those fins from the shark would basically be like damaging a tire on a car. It would be game over. However, is that enough? Could the croc's thrashing body, more precise movements, and strong bites cripple the shark's fin to lead it to victory? Or would the great white use its superior aquatic build, hit and run tactics, and its stealth to play the long game and win? Well, people, I think it's about time we determine a verdict. Alright, we have our stats. So who wins in a fight between a saltwater crocodile and a great white shark? Well, people, giving y'all the honest truth here, I think the great white shark would win. Now, I do see this being a very kind of disorienting and confusing fight for the shark, no doubts. But here's why the shark would win. The shark is simply built for water in ways the croc just isn't. It's faster, more maneuverable, and would use the depths of the water realm more to its advantage, right? Basically, think about the croc is mainly going to be kind of hugging the surface of the water, while the shark's more streamlined body, superior agility, and slicing bite would make it the perfect assassin for this type of fight. All it takes is just one clean hit to the croc's soft underbelly that basically make it game over. And remember, even though the croc can disorient, with the thrashing motion and whatnot, it tires out quickly and eventually you'll have to come up for air. And that's where the shark would take advantage. It plays directly into how it hunts for other animals like seals and whatnot. And the croc's death roll move doesn't really hit the same underwater against something that is moving very violently and that will also hit it with an equally nasty bite. Sure, if the croc manages to get a lucky chomp on the fin, it could deal some serious damage, but has to catch the fin first and perform its death roll. But that's a big if. Listen, most of the time, the shark is playing the long game. It's going to be circling, hitting, waiting for the croc to bleed out while avoiding that nasty bite. The croc is more like a surface level bruiser boss, right? And the great white would just take advantage more of the open water depths to its advantage. It can disappear and whatnot. The shark is also going to be kind of hard to spot as well, like I said, using more of its environment, and the constant gnawing at the croc's body, making it bleed out, and basically waiting for it to fatigue to either surface or whatnot would play right into the strategy of the shark. But yeah, that's my take. Let me know in the comments what y'all think. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and enjoy the rest of my content.